This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not meeting Mrs. Jones in that cafe for a chat and nothing else, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Are you a small business owner in Seattle who was impacted by COVID-19? The Seattle Office of Economic Development is investing $8 million to connect small businesses to operating capital. The Small Business Capital Access Program will lower the cost of Washington State Small Business Flex Fund loans by paying down 25% of the loan principal. Eligible small businesses can borrow up to $150,000 with a 4% interest rate to cover expenses like payroll, rent, utilities, and supplies.
This is Brenda Charles Edwards, host of Seniors Matter. Join me every week to get information on activities and issues that impact the lives of older adults and their families. That's Seniors Matter every week on Rainier Avenue Radio.
What's up, everyone? It's your girl, Queen Bree, inviting you to come join me on Clean Greens Living. Broadcasted Tuesdays, 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, live right here on Rainier Avenue Radio. On Clean Greens Living, we talk farming, community, and ways to being healthy. So come join me and let's discuss ways to create a healthier you and a healthier community.
Wash your hands, don't touch your face, wipe things down, clean up your space. When you cough and sneeze, do responsibly. If you feel you're getting ill, isolate at home and chill. No, you're not alone. Please pick up your phone and call 206-477-3977. King County 206-477-3977. Public Health 206-477-3977. King County 206-477-3977. Public Health Community Radio Station will provide you with more information. Say Rainier Avenue Radio. Your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
Would you like to see when your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio show comes on? Check out our show schedule, updated weekly at rainieravenue.world.
Good afternoon and welcome to WIAA Primetime, our weekly conversation with the Executive Director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, Mick Hoffman. And I am Juan Cotto, radio host, personality, voice for baseball coming up. Just talking to Tony B about baseball season and a little chilly to be talking about baseball season right now, but the hope of spring is eternal, and it's right around the corner. And we will be bringing you high school games on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. We will be bringing you talk. We will be bringing you politics. Big election in Georgia tonight. It'll be interesting to see what those findings are down in the great state of Georgia, where a former athlete, I believe, is running against a current U.S. senator. And I'm not going to talk politics on this show, but I am going to talk to Mick Hoffman. Mick, welcome. Hey, good to see you, my brother.
Good to see you.
How are you?
Good.
Sports as a gift. We're coming up on the holiday season, and our theme for the show today is the gift of sports. And Mick, I think about so many coaches who, especially this time of year, I got folks that I work with. I put a Facebook post out this weekend on Jim Johnson, who was my community college coach up at Edmonds Community College, and really helped me develop and really helped extend my career. And it wasn't a guy that gave me a lot of playing time, but he really taught me how to play the game, taught me how to be a professional. And I think about the gift that coaches give. And as we're thinking about the holiday season and the gift of giving, let's talk about what the coaches do in terms of giving to the kids in our community.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what a coach gets paid, especially at the high school level, when I was coaching and as an athletic director, we tracked it occasionally. And you're talking nickels and dimes an hour. And that's not even, you start factoring in the out of season and the criticism and the stress that they're put under. So it's truly a labor of love. And so what they do is they give themselves. And, what we try to do is make that as painless as possible, because they're going to help. There's so many young people that, for whatever reason, may not have somebody in their lives to help guide them, to be that mentor. So it could be a mentor, could be a cheerleader, could be somebody who teaches them the finer points of an athletic skill that allows them to get to that next level, college level. And so, I'm here simply because of a coach who found me, dropped out of college and not knowing what I wanted to do in the world, and got me to go into coaching myself. And so, I've told a couple stories of former players who have relayed similar messages. And so they truly sometimes give us a path forward, sometimes give us a life preserver, sometimes give us hope. And they do it all at the sacrifice of their time and sometimes their own families.
And it really is a special gift. It is a special calling, especially at the high school level. Yeah. And you referenced the salaries, but these are people who just love sports. They love teaching children and want to make a difference in the community.
Yeah, I mean, a great coach is so obvious. Once upon a time in our ed system, our best coaches are typically our best teachers, because it's the same process, right? You evaluate, you plan, you test, you retest, you reorganize, you go back, you find a way for each person to be successful on your team. So yeah, and then they would a lot of times become our principals and then our superintendents. And over time we've lost that teacher coach, and right, wrong, or indifferent. And so we're finding more people from our communities coming into our schools, which brings in a different experience as well. You have people who are successful business women that are coaching, or former athletes that didn't go into teaching that come back and give back in their community. So there's a lot of good in that as well. And so, but a good coach, a great coach, is obvious, way beyond wins and losses. And what we find is sometimes our coaches do their best coaching in their toughest seasons.
There are some people in the community who try to separate, or it is their vision to separate academics from athletics. I think you'll probably agree with me. I see academics and athletics as co-curricular. It was speaking, I think my wife and I have the same philosophy. We're both college athletes, but as we talk to our son about athletics, we really see that, and you described it, the process, and that is also a gift of athletics, is to be able to develop those processes. Number one, I mean, I felt like it helped motivate me and made me much more interested in my academics. But it also taught you the processes to be successful and to be disciplined in the classroom. Right. I think that is the true benefit of athletics, especially at the high school level.
Yeah, 100%. And that's really the gift that comes from participation. We saw during COVID with online learning and isolation that our FTEs, our student counts went way down in our schools. And we actually had superintendents starting to call. I had some superintendents email me and chastise me for a letter we put out that December about the need to get back to playing for the social emotional benefit of our students, thinking that it was too aggressive. We're just worried about our own jobs and it's more than just sports. And then as we got into January, February, some of those same superintendents came back and said, hey, when can we get started? We don't have enough noses in front. Like they saw the value in it, which is great. I agree. When we put that letter out early in the pandemic, it was a little nerve-wracking to be on the edge of that thing, but we truly believe that, our students fail and succeed in a public setting. And you think about what that can do to young people. And that's where the coach is so important, to wrap around and love that kid up and not let them get too high, not let them get too low, and learn how to deal with that, because no different than in our interpersonal relationships, than in our professions, we hit highs and we hit lows. And we're doing this show that people, I hope somebody's watching it, but that people are watching, and they all have opinions. They come at us in a lot of different ways. Sometimes we swing and miss. Sometimes we hit it out of the park. And the skills I learned as a 14, 15, 16, 18-year-old athlete translate to what I do as a 53-year-old executive director. I mean, those skill sets last forever.
He is Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. I am Juan Cotto. I am a radio personality. I guess you'd call me a streaming media personality. Thanks to your community radio station, our community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, right on Rainier Avenue, right here in little old Columbia City. And we're really, really excited to be here today to chat about the issues that are going on. Hopefully we can share some things that will resonate with you. Hopefully we'll share some things that will challenge you when you get a chance to hear this show. And your questions and your input is always welcome. And you can always do that on the Rainier Avenue Radio.world website. Mick, you touched on it in regards to athletics and academics and the people involved in such. And I'm wondering the people who the subtle change that we've made from the teacher coaches who were all in the building and had a chance to develop a relationship with kids, and as you said, bringing people now from outside the building, from the community, who have come in, and some of those are business owners, and certainly I was a executive at a cancer research center, and I was coaching over in Burien. But is that a positive for the kids, do you think, to be able to learn from people in the community? I know it's sort of necessary now, and a lot of teachers don't have some of the impetus to step out and coach, and teaching has gotten a little bit more challenging. But to have people come in, a lot of people couldn't believe it when I did it. What, you're not a teacher, but I was thinking, I just think, geez, I mean, doesn't it benefit to have kids playing for someone who's at a cancer research center and developing those relationships?
Absolutely. Again, when we talk about education-based activities, the experiences that the coaches and the expertise they bring from outside their sport is a huge value, because it comes up on the bus rides and the locker rooms as you're waiting for the JV game to end and your varsity game, or vice versa. And so I think it potentially has great potential for positive. One of the challenges is that as teachers, we go through a lot of training of working with young people, and then also all the rules and boundaries and those kinds of things, where if you haven't been through that public setting, it's just a little heavier lift for the schools. It's all doable. None of it's magic. A lot of people get it in their own professions or what they have. So that's one. And then the other piece is we get a lot of club coaches who come in, and a lot of times it's very different in that setting, in a positive or a negative way at times. And so again, I think it comes down more to the individual, how the most important thing we ever do running a business is who we hire. Second thing is, how we take care of them. And if you hire well and you take care of good people, your job becomes a lot easier. I think we're talking about that later today. But it's the same thing with coaches. And so how do we help coach our coaches once we have them?
The Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, so fortunate to have great staff, and Mick is going to touch bases on that in the second half of the show. But we're just talking about the gift of athletics and what it brings to the community. Community support. We saw it this past weekend at the state championships that were going on. Just like the community comes and galvanizes. Seems like high school athletics will always resonate in the community for a couple of different reasons. Number one, most of us have played high school athletics, so people have a connection with the schools. They have a connection with the fields and stadiums. And then the second thing is that, boy, it's fun to watch, isn't it, when you get a nice big celebration like that?
Yeah, and the weather worked out great this year, so a lot better than last year. There's a lot of tradition, and I think we a lot of times undervalue that in this world where we're jumping from one thing. We can get on our phone and look at 100 things in a minute, literally, read different articles and the next best thing, the new thing, this. And, when you play somewhere your parents played or your aunt and uncle played, you learn the history of the facility you're playing at. There's something to be said for that, and wearing that team name across your chest that hundreds or thousands of people have done, that you're not only representing yourself in that situation or your school, but you're representing everybody who's been a part of that. And that's pretty cool when you think about it, especially in today's world that's shifting and changes so fast. So I think we undervalue that. I don't think we bring that to the forefront enough as an association and with our membership. And, we hear a lot of different sports or activities that want to become part of the schools or the WIAA. And why is that? Well, it's the exact setting we saw it. And I know this is a Metro League world, but that Yelm Eastside Catholic ending is unbelievable. I mean, you think about it, that play in that setting under a minute, like that's movie stuff. Like you and I, we wouldn't even put that out there as a script because it's like too obvious. And it happened. And that's something that will be passed down in that Yelm community forever. And their players and coaches will talk about it, the people who were there. Heck, at some point there's going to be 100,000 people who claim they were at the game. We just didn't sell them a ticket. So there's those kinds of things that's stable. That's not going to go away because the club closes or the coach leaves to go coach somewhere else. Like Yelm football is going to be there, and that's going to be their first one, and they're going to have a heck of a story to tell forever. And so that's the traditions that live out in high school sports.
The gift of teamwork, the gift of time management, the gift of relationships with your high school peers outside of the academic schedule, the gift of structure, the gift of discipline, the gift of respect. Athletics in regards, what are the things that come to mind? What are the important areas that you would like to see the WIAA focus on in terms of 2023 and giving young people an opportunity to participate in athletics? What are you hoping that they get out of it?
Yeah, we're really hoping to try to find a way to keep them connected to their education. That's what we want to do. So whatever that takes. And so, Tony B and I had a great conversation. We came in, he brought part of his video productions group down and helped us with the production of the streaming. And, what he shared was we brought students from two very different communities to work together on that. They didn't know each other at all. By the end, he's telling me stories. He's like, Mick, they're exchanging numbers. They were doing this, they're doing that. Like, that's what we can do as a byproduct of wins and losses, regardless. And these aren't even students who are on the field. These are the ones doing the production, doing the thing like D Money and others are doing for this show, where they're coming together to produce something that is forever.
The gift of collaboration.
Absolutely. And so again, you think about the people you supervise, the people you work with. Those are skills that you have to have. You made a comment about a coach, in a positive frame that didn't give you as much playing time as you wanted. Like, we learned that we have different roles on different teams. The role I play at home is different than the one I do at work, then it's different in the job. So we also learn how, for a team to move forward, there's needs. And how do we fit into those? It's not just what I want or what I need. And so I think that's a skill set that coming out of the pandemic that needs to be emphasized moving forward.
The gift of females in athletics and the gift of girls sports, I guess it's young women's sports now, with the role that young women have taken, and so many great games that we have seen over the last couple of years, covered here on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio .world, where we have covered state championships, and we have seen Metro League games go down to the wire, and the competition and the compassion or the passion, and more fans starting to show up. Yeah. And the level of quality of play is at the elite level. It is exciting to see young women in athletics, and the community starts to respond to it.
100%. As a father of a former athlete and coach and aspiring athletic director and a granddaughter, I would hope that they get the same love and support that my grandson and my son got. One of the best basketball games I've seen at high school, and I've seen a lot of high school basketball games, was Nooksack Valley Linden Christian last year. I got invited up, went and attended. These point guards went at each other, fiercely competitive. Gym was full, packed full, and it was really good basketball. And watch, and so we get some superstars. There's one young lady back at Louisville right now. I mean, you watch her play, but just the quality, like you said, the quality of play, the time that the female athletes are putting in is really no different than what the male athletes are doing now. And as we continue, as that generation between us continues to experience that, I think the following of that, I think we'll start seeing the same attendance at those events that we see at boys events.
Mick, the World Cup is currently going on, and for those that watch this in the future, the World Cup round of 16 just ended today. Portugal beat the Swiss 5-1. You can YouTube that and see all the highlights. It's amazing to see how this event brings the world together, and sports has such a new way from at the macro level to see the World Cup and how passionate fans are about it, to the micro level. And like you say, Linden Christian and Nooksack Valley, and two small communities come together, but it's so dynamic and the communities get into it. What is it about sports that brings us all together?
Well, our culture has great passion for competition, right? And sport. You look back through what our history, being as brief as it is on the world level, but sports is very important in our communities across the country for right, wrong, or indifferent. And so it's a place where we can all go and enjoy and experience without having to worry about different types of communication. There's certain norms that we all fall into at these different sporting events. You attend a Sounders game, it's a different experience than a Storm game. It's a different experience than a Mariners game. And people are within that norm. So no matter what our experience is, where we come from, we kind of know what the expectation is, and most people fall in line with that, right? And so it's a great place to be able to interact with your communities through from anywhere. You can travel across the country and have that same type of experience. And the other thing that's really cool, that as communities grow their sport, they create these traditions that then that's what I like to do. I like to travel to different sporting events and go experience those traditions. And whether it's the jump at a University of Wisconsin game or Neil Diamond at a Red Sox 7th inning stretch. I mean, there's just traditions that happen that you get to go be a part of that make it special.
You are listening to Mick Hoffman, the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activity Association. I am Rainier Avenue Radio, our community radio station, your community radio stations. Juan Cotto, personality, baseball, the voice of baseball in the Metro League. Mick, I picked the wrong day to shave my head. Gee whiz.
I saw that you cut that.
Had to get rid of some of that gray hair that was sitting in there. I was throwing off the contrast of our screen back there. So had that done. But in an effort to look a little bit younger, had the hair come off, and we are talking about high school athletics and the gift that it is here in the holiday season. Mick, the University of Washington Huskies, excuse me, they are going to their bowl game down in San Antonio, Texas, to play in the Alamo Bowl. I believe Washington State. I didn't see where Washington State was playing. I don't know if we happen to know where that is.
I think it's the LA Bowl in
the Jimmy Kimmel. They got the Jimmy Kimmel Bowl, and not a bad place to go. And certainly the people will go ahead. The alumni and the supporters will travel to those two locations, and it'll always be an exciting time to go on a bowl trip. Once again, we have the state championships here. Just wonderful to see the community of Yelm travel and bring people, and how exciting was it in terms of having people, and obviously Eastside Catholic a little bit closer, but going down to Puyallup Sparks Stadium, people have their followings for their schools. That's always an exciting thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's what makes high school sports is you have alumni, you have current parents and family and friends, and you just have people who identify with the school. I mean, Sparks Stadium, they were lined up around the fence that day, and
usually are.
Yeah, which was great. I mean, it was loud and it was fun. I had a conversation with there's a coach from Oregon State there. And I was chatting with him down on the side of the field and just asking about his experience. And, you talk about families, and he had coached some NFL, he's done some college, and he absolutely loves Corvallis, the small town, the community feel. He said everything's within 10 minutes. His daughter's going to school there. And I said, what's the give and take between the pros and here besides the money? And he said, in the NFL, when the season's over, we work 4 day weeks for the most part. And he goes, in the college level, we're never done. We're on the road recruiting just like this. They got a huge win over Oregon, and they're going down there to the Las Vegas Bowl. And he said, we're prepping. We're giving our kids some time off. So now I'm on the road recruiting, looking for the next one. So, I mean, Sparks Stadium was a fantastic venue for those games on Saturday. So
the gift of our officials, the people who wear the striped shirts, people who wear the whistles, people who keep the games fair, and such an important part of youth athletics, a gift that's so special, people who are so special. Mick, talk about the gift of officiating and what they bring to this whole program.
Yeah, we talk about coaches giving their time. I mean, officials, a lot of them are working 4 or 5 nights a week, and their games are late in the evening. So as far as time, they're doing that, and they go out there knowing the parents are going to most likely be yelling at them, where coaches deal with it. So for them to want to make sure that it's not PE, that it's actually competitive athletics, for not a lot of pay. I mean, no one's making a living at the high school level doing that. It's kind of like coaching. It's an incredible gift that they do, and it's really, when you watch them and you get to talk to someone, especially the ones who are really skilled at it, it's a love and passion for the game, and you hear them talk, and you're like, well, why are you working so much? Well, if I don't play, the kids don't play. If I'm not here, the kids don't play. And it's not this look at me, thump my chest. It's this exhausted by the end of the season. We have to be here. We have to get these younger officials ready to go. We have to get them through those first few years and survive, the screaming from that freshman parent. Typically the freshman parent is the one who, realistically, a lot of those kids aren't going to play varsity anyway. And they don't know half the rules that they're yelling about. But the officials take that to heart. And so the gift they give is patience and courage to show up every night knowing what they're walking into, just simply to be a giver.
Freshman parents, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, do I know the freshman parents? The father of a freshman right now, and the hardworking freshman, a freshman who really appreciates sports, and also a community that also really is supportive, and that's so important. And although we do know there are some parents who tend to take it over the top a little tiny.
And it only takes a handful of them, right? And so I guess with that, what the parents could give is to regulate other parents, right? To be able to show it's not okay. And because, again, parents are critical to this. Who gets the kids to practice? Who gets them a pair of shoes or a pair of cleats? Who encourages them to go back when they don't get the position they want? It's parents. So parents are a critical factor in this. And we know they love their students. So don't take it out on the officials if it's not going well. Trust me, I can't imagine there's a whole lot of officials who get up every day wanting to ruin the day or put the boots to a kid, right? And cheat a kid. Like, that's not, why would you go into that profession to do that? You don't get paid enough. You give up all your time. Like, you'd have to be really, I think we would figure that person out fairly quick. And so, yeah, are there some that are inexperienced? Yep. And you know why? It's because we keep losing them. And so we have to have some patience. So once we get over that, but man, I'm telling you, parents, besides our coaches, parents are their next most important part of this process, because who are the students going to listen to? They're going to listen to their parents. They're going to listen to their coaches. The rest of us, they don't even want to know our name, right? But those are the key people. So we're trying to figure out, like, how do we work with them? How do we make them part of the process to keep this thing moving forward?
Major influences.
Absolutely.
Mick, as we approach the break, I want to ask you, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. On December 31st, we'll sit back and we'll sing Auld Lang Syne, the traditional song where we look back and look forward. Anything special you want to share about the year 2022 that will bring it back a memory and say, boy, the WIAA did it right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I'm trying to be careful. I guess what I would say is that we've implemented a lot of systems on the business side. And I think what we're getting right is we're trying to find a way to include more students than our traditional athletes. And the example of what Tony talked today, I mean, for me right there, that makes my week. Just hearing the positive impact we had. And there's a lot of that takes place. And we're going to get this girls flag football. We have that running. We have esports up and running. And so we're going to draw students beyond the typical football, basketball player. Nothing wrong with them, right? But we want to be able to positively impact more students. And I would say, with what we're trying to do to recognize people who are putting in the time and draw students to this so they can be with healthy adults in a fun setting, is what we're doing right.
The holiday season, the gift of athletics on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Your community radio station, our community radio station. Mick Hoffman with us, the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. And we will be right back after this break.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not meeting Mrs. Jones in that cafe for a chat and nothing else, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
How would COVID vaccines work in your body? Here are 3 things to know. Number 1, a vaccine is basically a training session for the immune system. Vaccines teach the immune system to look for the key features of a virus. So when a virus does show up, it's ready to fight it off. Number 2, a vaccine gives your body a plan to recognize the virus. Then your immune system starts preparing by making antibodies, or fighter cells, that stay in your blood as protection in case the virus tries to invade. What this means is you get immunity against the disease without having to get sick first. Number 3, when enough people's bodies know how to fight off a virus, it has nowhere to go. That slows the spread. When people get a vaccine, we're able to stop the spread quicker and get closer to ending the pandemic. To learn more, go to covidvaccinewa.org. A message from the state of Washington.
This is Big Poppy, host of Jazz from the Cabinets. Join me each week for a listening tour of the first century of jazz, an eclectic mix of Dixieland, big band, cool jazz, bebop, contemporary jazz, world jazz, all jazz in all forms. That's Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy on Rainier Avenue Radio, streaming worldwide on RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Hello, listener. What's important to you about what's going on in your community? Are you interested? Are you concerned? In any case, I invite you to tune into my show, Seattle Here and Now, on RainierAvenueRadio.world. Why? I will be covering a wide range of topics important to you and impacting the community. Each show will have a special guest or guests to share with you information on a variety of subjects that are happening here and now in Seattle. I promise I will work hard to make my show informative, interesting, and entertaining. Be sure to listen to Seattle Here and Now on RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Atlantic Street Center has been serving the children, youth, and families of the Seattle-King County area since 1910. We partner with families and communities to raise healthy, successful children and youth through services including counseling, early learning, youth development, domestic violence, and education support for school-aged children. Committed to serving the African-American community, Atlantic Street Center provides services and support for all marginalized people. Learn more at AtlanticStreetCenter.org.
Rainier Avenue Radio. Rainier Avenue Radio.
Welcome back to WIAA Primetime on your community radio station, our community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Daniel, can you remind me the name of the show? Our producer, Daniel Bellis. Is it The Queen's Touch? Yes, The Queen's Touch, Thursdays at 1 p.m. right here on our community radio station, your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Providing all sorts of opportunities for people in our community to come and show wares. And we're really excited about this program, excited about so many of our programs. If you like politics, we have it. If you like sports, we have a plethora of it, going from high schools all year long on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Metro League basketball is starting up, and you'll hear us do some of those games. And then, of course, going on to the spring, and we'll do softball, baseball, maybe even do some soccer. I know we did that a couple of years ago. Then if you like music, we do music. So your choice, your good stuff. And obviously, we like to highlight the stories of our kids in the community. That's where we bring in Mick Hoffman, the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, to sit down and talk about different things and in regards to youth sports. And today, we talked about the gift of athletics heading into the holiday season. Just a little play on words there. But here's one that we're going to talk about, Mick. and talk about your staff, because you have some phenomenal staff members and just wonderful people to work with. So tell us how the WIAA is structured, and give us a little rundown. We talk about Andy, and we talk about different Andy Barnes, who does football. And give us a little rundown of some of the people in there who have been wonderful. They've spent a long time in their careers at the WIAA now, and exactly what they do.
Yeah, no, we're a small staff in comparison. Most like-sized states are about twice as big staff-wise. So our people put in some time and some energy. They're efficient with their time. It's funny having these topics together because, when you talk about great teams, like I always tell people, no matter what job I've been in, is you never want to get in your car and be headed to work and not looking forward to it. Mm-hmm. And because we have such a great team, like even in my commute, 2.5 hours some days, I look forward to being at work in the office because of the people I work with. They're fun and they're really hardworking, and they're very committed to making things better. So at our staff, we have what we call support level staff, which is kind of entry level positions. So Bryn Langrock, she's been with us a year. She is our office operations. She does a little bit of everything up front, helps organize, liaison with our executive board, does a ton of social media work. She just tried out for the ladies football team this weekend, and she informed us today she made it.
All right,
so,
congratulations.
Yeah, UW grad, and so she's fantastic. And I love having, as a coach, you watch young people blossom. And now in this job, as I get older and you bring people on, you get to watch them blossom. And a year in, she has absolutely been hitting it out of the park.
Awesome. So
with also at that level, another employee who started about the same time, Nick Mendros. He began as an intern. He's working on a grant we have with the University of Washington to produce social emotional learning training for our coaches. Mm-hmm. And so he's really gifted with technology. And one of his goals coming in is he wanted to run a marathon. He made it this last year. Went up to Anchorage. I asked him, he's a smart kid, another UW grad. And I said, Nick, why Anchorage? He said, it's flat. So,
good for him.
Yeah, they're thinkers.
Brilliant strategy.
Absolutely. And then another one of our entry level, Peter Ho. He works a lot with our membership and our finances. He's a graduate out of the Highline School District, Evergreen High School specifically, and still gets out and plays some hoops with his buddies. He's got this, you talk about, the value of being on a team. He's kept his lifetime friendships, just got engaged. He's done a great job of organizing how we structure our communication with our membership. And he's been so good that he just took a 4-week leave of absence to go visit family in Vietnam. And so, we try, when we have great employees, we want to keep them. And that's why I'm a little nervous about people trying to recruit away folks that we brag up here, but they deserve the recognition. So, yeah, he's done a wonderful job with the finances and membership treatment. And then another one, Aaron Richescenter, he's been with us 16 years in the production, and he is a data guy for us. He oversees our facility. We've done a ton of physical security upgrades. He is responsible for putting together, if you were out at those state events and you saw the signage and everything going on. So he's responsible for that and everything out the door, helps us select our teams of the month and a lot of our scholarship programming that we do. And so he's a rock in that group of somebody who's a Mount Vernon grad baseball player. So big UW fan, has season tickets. So yeah, we have the bedrock of our program is our support staff, and they have really stepped up and helped us advance the work.
The ability to hang on to a great team. And hey, anybody out there watching on your community radio station, our community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, hands off of those folks. Let Mick keep his team. No, just kidding. It sounds like they're extremely talented, and it sounds like they're going to be moving on. In terms of keeping people in positions like that, because you want to keep your great people, what are the mechanisms that you use to help them develop?
Yeah, so essentially, our goal is we train them up and that we try to grow our own. And if something would open up, and as we talk about Cindy and Andy, you're going to find, just like Aaron, we have a lot of long-time employees. And so there's not a lot of openings there. We don't add a lot of staff. Like I said, we run lean. So essentially, we know eventually a lot of our good employees will outgrow us. And that could be considered a loss. We see it as an asset. Now we got allies in the world. And whether they become athletic directors, they go into sports marketing somewhere, they go to work for Tony here, there's all kinds of things I could be there, and they're always welcome to come back. So so what we try to do is we try to take really good care of them. We try to whether it's financially, through benefits, opportunities, help them grow as professionals. I mean, that's our job. If they outgrow us, hey, it doesn't mean we're not friends. Zoe Haywood came in one of those jobs, and she got picked up essentially as the assistant AD overseeing activities at Seattle Prep. She got hired as their head volleyball coach, and we got to watch her coach in the state tournament. So, you walk in and you see that, and you're like, man, she was really good. I'm really bummed we lost her. And then you talk to her about what she's doing, and she's really happy, and she's growing professionally. That's what we're here for. So, so that's how we try to work that with our support staff entry-level jobs.
What are the 3 essential talents that an individual has to have to work in an organization like the WIAA?
Well, one is they got to have passion for giving to others, right? I mean, it's kind of like what we look like for coaches. So we do a very non-traditional hiring process as far as the questions we ask. So we ask them, we want to know what their vision is of what their job is. Like, what do they want? What do they want? And if it's into service in that, if it's about, enforcing rules on people, that's a byproduct of our job. So one of it is they have to have a passion for the work. They also have to have a growth mindset. Like, they really got to want to learn, because we're going to push them in a lot of different directions. I mean, they're learning skills and things that they had no idea they would be doing in this position. And then they have to have a strong work ethic. So they'll be good teammates if they do that. If they don't want to be a good teammate, they're off the team. I don't care how talented they are. I don't care who they are, what they've done. You're not going to be on a team I'm responsible for if you're not a good teammate, if you don't want to keep growing, if you don't have passion for what we do. And so then my preference is to have to pull them back rather than have to kick them in the fanny to get them moving. And so that's what we have on our team. And, we're incredibly fortunate.
Mick, tell us, let's just take a step back. I think we did this back in September, but for those who didn't see that particular episode, Mick, tell us how you got to the WIAA. Just walk us through your career a little bit and talk about your passion for athletics as a coach, administrator, and then ultimately to the executive director position.
Sure. Well, I started off, like I said, I dropped out of college. I quit playing basketball. Wasn't really sure I was working a job in a warehouse, and I had a coach call and ask me, "What are you doing?" And so I said, "Well, I'm living." And I thought I was making pretty good money back then. 1988, 1989, something like that. I was probably making $5 an hour or something.
Single guy. Yeah. Well, you were making good money then.
Yeah. He said, "Hey, come help me coach my basketball team." He was a JV basketball coach at the time. And so I went in there. I'm like, "Yeah, that's pretty cool." And he's like, "Yeah, well, you got to be a teacher." Because back then, we weren't hiring outside the school for teaching positions. And it was really hard. It took me a couple of years to get a freshman job, let alone anything else. So I went back to school, and I was back playing basketball. And my wife, who was my girlfriend since we were 16, we found out we were going to have a baby. So I needed to provide for my family. And so I quit basketball again on the same coach, who was incredibly supportive. And I went to work. I was coaching football and basketball and teaching driver's ed and going to school full time and just kind of grinding out. Had to get it done. And I got done. I got lucky enough to get a teaching job down there in Vancouver at Hudson's Bay High School, my alma mater. And I was coaching football and basketball while I was there and still doing the driver's ed, and eventually got the head basketball job at Fort Vancouver High School. And again, I could have held out and tried, but Fort Vancouver is my kind of place. I love the underdog. I'm an underdog to have this job. And so I seek that out when I can. And I've been very fortunate to have good mentors along the way. And I eventually went into administration. I had a principal pushing me to be an administrator. So eventually I relented and went into administration, became an athletic director back at Hudson's Bay. Was a principal for a while. It wasn't a lot of fun. I mean, it was fine, but I didn't have a lot of passion around that. Way more political even than anything else in athletics. And so I said, "Get me out of this." They made me the district athletic director, took over safety security, eventually became assistant superintendent. I got on the board with WIAA. Mike decided to retire. He called and said, "Hey, I think you ought to consider applying for this job." He's, calling around to a few people. So talked to my wife, and I said, we have grandkids now, and she's not leaving Vancouver. She's a teacher. And I said, well, what do you think? What if I would actually get it if I apply? And she goes, it would be like when you were a coach or AD, we put the kids in the car and came and had dinner in the gym or on the field with you then. It'll be a little bit longer drive now. And that's essentially what has happened. And so, I ran into Bruce Brown and proactive coaching when I was an athletic director. Yeah, totally changed my philosophy on athletics and a more global perspective around character coaching and the long-lasting impact of how we interact with our students, as opposed to if we get a win with our students. And so, not that I've said it here, I don't let my grandkids win in Uno attack. We're competing to the end. But so that's how I got here. And so I feel like, I'm really, really fortunate to have this job. And as long as I'm in it, we're going to work hard at it. And we're going to continue to evolve to provide service to our students and families and communities we serve. And we'll do the governance. We got to do the rulemaking and all that. That's why we're there. But we can do it in a way that I can walk in and have a conversation like I did with Tony B and say, yeah, we're headed the right direction.
He is Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. I'm Juan Cotto, the radio personality who brings you football, baseball, basketball, sometimes a little bit of politics. Daniel Bellis is our producer today. He brings you a little bit of music and talk. And this is on your community radio station, our community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio .world. We are right here on Rainier Avenue. You can maybe see between the signs a little bit. We have Rainier Avenue right behind us at the old Columbia City Theater, the still serviceable Columbia City Theater, where we have this studio, and Tony B has really fixed it up, and Daniel and James and the staff here at Rainier Avenue Radio .world. The Queen's Touch, speaking of new shows and programs on Rainier Avenue Radio. The Queen's Touch is going to be on Thursday at 1 o'clock. So if you're looking for a different type of show, and really excited about that one that we're putting together, please join us on Thursday at 1 o'clock to learn more about the Queen's Touch. And should be an exciting opportunity to hear from another community leader. If you're interested in ever doing a show on Rainier Avenue Radio, contact us here, because a number of people have gotten started that way. People who've thought about doing some podcasts, people who've thought about putting some of the ideas that they've wanted to test out in the community. This has been a great way to do it. Mick Hoffman, the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, in our usual Tuesday afternoon conversation. Mick, where do you find good staff? Where are you finding these folks? It seems like it's a real eclectic group, but they're passionate and supportive and really kind of buy into your mission.
Yeah, so a lot of our executive staff was existing when I came in. We had two other positions open. John Miller retired, and Brian Smith got the district athletic director in Kent School District. And so there we opened it up for applicants, and we were able to hire BJ Kuntz, who was in Wenatchee School District, longtime athletic director, district director over there. And she basically interviewed me initially to make sure. It is a big jump. Her family, she's well established in Wenatchee area. She had a really good job, but she wanted to make a bigger impact and be able to have the freedom to do some things. So she's created some women's leadership programming and systems that, she's leading this grant for us, and has just done truly amazing work. She's leading our transgender diversity work in that area. And so she's really vested. So you talk about leading from the heart. She definitely does that. And then we got a young man, Justin Kesterson, who is relatively new to the AD role. Again, an application came out through the state, and he was working for the Highline School District. He was helping run their stadium and doing some other things. He's a relatively unknown, but people spoke really highly of him. And we interviewed him, and we did a second interview with him. And what he spoke to was the purpose and power of athletics, similar to what we've talked. We basically align values. I definitely don't want mini-me's, right? I can't even hardly stand myself sometimes. So we need people who come at this work differently, but have the same ultimate goal, that see the potential and value of education-based athletics in that light, and that aren't just going to go through the motions and just do, our job could be pretty easy, just kind of running some tournaments and letting people complain, but we want to do more than that. And so both of them shared that in their interviews. And so when we have those openings, like with these openings of support staff, we reach out to our contacts, right? So we reached out into the schools in Seattle, Tacoma, some of the ADs, because as we've talked before, we really need to work on making sure our staff represents the communities we serve, and we have some work to do on that. And so we are reaching out and building those networks. So as more opportunities arise, we'll have that opportunity. We'll be able to go out farther, because otherwise we do our traditional, we send it out through our communication channels. We put it on our social media website. We recruit. And what we find a lot of times is comparable positions in schools, especially, pay more than we do. And so we have a tough time competing with that. So it has to really be somebody that's looking like what BJ and Justin said is, I know I can make more money doing what I'm doing, but I want to do this kind of work. And so, when you get people who want to come on your team like that, pretty fortunate.
The sponsors, and we saw a number of sponsors for the events this past weekend. I'm just wondering, in terms of the WIAA and your staff, how do you go out and find the right sponsor fits where this makes sense to support the WIAA and all it does for people in the community?
Yeah, we have a contract with a group, Playfly Sports, who goes out and actually does that work for us. But we have final say on whether they come on as a sponsor or not. So we're not going to bring anybody on that, and even how they market or what they market, we help broker that deal for what fits, making sense for the communities and also our schools. So they do most of the legwork, and then they help with most of the activation, and we go out and finalize, with that we need to sign off on any deal. So
what do they do, by the way?
Playfly?
Yeah.
Well, anything from the banners you see at the events to online promotions to activation. So like we had the Army at our events, and they're setting up, some of their vehicles and those kind of things to expose people to the military beyond just fighting. Like there's so many career opportunities and finance that's available for post military service. And so we do stuff like that. Geesa Credit Union, they have an affinity card that is a give back program to schools. That we have schools making tens of thousands of dollars off this thing just by their community using that as their debit card and swiping it. And so we try to bring not only the sponsorship dollars to the association to offset the costs of our members, so we don't have to raise membership fees and ticket prices, but we also try to bring value added to our schools, that it's something that they can utilize at a discounted rate.
Are the sponsorships, are they for the school year or are they for the calendar year? How does that work?
It depends. They're typically, they're multi-year ones. Some people only want to engage in single years, some do multi-year. So each one is brokered a little differently. But we try to run everything to end at the end of June, so around the school calendar. Our fiscal year, similar to anybody else's, as far as schools with the August 1st kickoff. But as far as deals, we don't want disruptions during the course of, we want the students that experience the fall to get the same experience in the spring.
Mick Hoffman, the Washington State Interscholastic Activities Association Director on your community radio station, our community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. I'm going to mention a name, Todd Stordahl.
Yeah.
Someone who's got a real, at times it can be challenging position, but one that is so worthwhile, helping us recruit new officials. Yeah. And I know somebody who's very, very dedicated to that. And I know that you guys are in your separate organizations, but work in the same building. And obviously the impact is for the whole athletic community. Tell us about Todd and the role that he does.
Yeah, I mean, he gets beat on more than I do. I feel bad for that guy.
That.
Yeah, I mean, he gets it from all directions. And again, it's really interesting in this position, the inherent distrust of officials, like for whatever reason. And again, as much as I've coached, there's times I felt maybe I got homered a little bit, but most of our officials, they're not getting up to homer anybody. So, and Todd's in the middle of that fight, right? And he's trying to organize. We have 9 independent WI districts. He has like 140 some independent officials. So they have their own boards, their own directors. So can you imagine getting that many groups of strong-willed, because you have to be tough to be an official, to go out and do that, to try to get them marching on the same path. I don't know how he does it, honestly. I wouldn't take that job. I don't want that job.
Must be fun when he shows up with donuts.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And like I told you, I think previously, I mean, Carrie dominates him in picks. So she beats him every year in our pool in the league on who can pick the most NFL games. So I told him I told you that, and he's like, "Do not tell Juan that." So I want to make sure you don't forget.
I'm gonna wait till I see him.
Yeah, so Todd's great, and Carrie, and Todd's really creative, and so right now we're working with Seattle Sports Commission, trying to coordinate with the professional franchises and colleges on some recruiting, and then some of these individuals out in these associations they've come up with QR codes that they can on business cards you can give out to people who are truly interested. They're going out. Todd's working with them to get them out to meetings with students at sportsmanship summits. And so officials are becoming, rather than just that person who shows up in the stripes, gets on and off the field, of actually engaging more with coaches and ADs. And that's Todd's. And the other thing is that a lot of people don't know about Todd. And you asked, what are we most proud of? My answer should be what we're doing to impact the behavior around discriminatory action and interrupting it in real time, to where if something's going on in a game that shouldn't be happening, the officials can stop it. And Todd not only fully embraced that and implemented that across the state, but he's also invested in a bunch of training for officials that they volunteer for to do. And he's getting them to do it. And he's found trainers around the state that are well-versed and capable of helping officials understand what implicit bias might be and other things that maybe a lot of us are ignorant or would be ignorant to without some type of education. So, Todd's a believer. He gets it. He knows it. And he's also humble enough to know he doesn't have all the answers. He can recognize an issue. So he goes out and finds solutions. So yeah. So Todd's there, and we know Carrie she does most of the work there, but Todd's a great idea guy, no different than our staff.
But you bring up such an interesting yet sensitive yet important area of officiating and the implicit bias, which is what we've heard on so many different levels, and how that can sometimes it's a product of human nature. But to be able to look at that and analyze that, I mean, that's a real commitment to making sure that we're doing things right for the kids.
100%. And just being aware of it, because it can happen it doesn't just have to be racially impacted. Right. It can be public, private, wealthy communities, non-wealthy communities, male, female sports. Basketball officials a lot of times will do both genders. Do they go out with the same mindset in both those, or do they think they have to tone it down in one or another, or because this game or that game? And so I think it impacts far beyond its original intent, and it's critical work for us to continue. When we want to bring community together, we got to know each other a little bit, right? There has to be a sense of trust. And so our actions will develop that trust.
I've had my watch with me the whole time, and we are down to our last 2 minutes. So this is going to be our last question. It goes fast when you don't know the time. It goes fast when you do have this watch in your hand. I want to make sure that we hit our marks today. And I just want to give you an opportunity to discuss your staff, talk about the importance of what they do, the important role that they have in serving our kids in the community, and if you set any important benchmarks for 2023 that you're all going to go after.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have other staff. We'll talk about them, I'm hoping, in the future. Cindy Adsett started in 1987. So you talk about been there, done that, and still this great passion. We've talked about Andy Barnes, Andy Knapp, and who leads our social media. Casey, who put together the project that Tony and the Rainier Avenue Radio put in, the extra, and they're all doing that on their own time. And then we have a young lady, Sam Brown, who leads our eligibility. And when you talk about somebody who leads with her heart and at the same time balance of rules. So our goal in 2023, we have done a heavy lift through the pandemic. We've implemented a lot of systems, integrated technology, provided some programming and training. So our goal in 2023 right now is we're going to review our programming and see where can we keep getting better. So it's going to be this constant grind. We have major projects up off the ground that we need to solidify. right? So we can't take on huge projects, but what we can do is we're going to review every one of our tournaments, every one of our sports programming, and get ready for that next 4-year cycle that's coming up. So at this point, I have to let the staff breathe a little bit. They've been pushed really hard, and winter is a tough season.
And this is the holiday season. I want to thank once again Mick Hoffman for taking the time. He's been so committed to us on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, our community radio station, your community radio station. And once again, thank you so much for coming down and sharing your insights, your very, very valuable insights with the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. And we are wishing all of you, all of our viewers, listeners, and people who will take a look at this podcast to have a wonderful holiday season as we're moving into December. Like I said, I can feel the chill on my head a little bit. Thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you next week on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. I'm Juan Cotto for Mick Hoffman, the WIAA Primetime.